Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. A quick little invitation to all of you IB Economics students to head on over to my website, bradcartwright.com, a website designed to help you improve your scores in IB Economics, whether that be on an in-class quiz, a test, or ultimately the IB exam. So if you want some more information, check out the description box below. And other than that, enjoy this video. All right, now let's take a look at a critical piece of this whole journey, and that is, of course, is the assessment and the different components of assessment, what each of the papers, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, the internal assessment, how much they're worth when it comes to calculating out your IB composite score. And also, I'm going to touch lightly on the skills or sort of the main elements that you must possess in order to do well, okay? So this video is going to be really short, going to give you an overview of those skills or the knowledge that you need in order to be successful, and then we'll talk about paper 1, 2, 3, and the internal assessment and the difference in the way in which they're calculated or weighted for your composite score if you are a high-level student or if you are a standard-level student, okay? But first, let's take a look at the main elements. These are the things, these are the skills. I like to call them skills, but they're not actually all skills. But these are the 5 elements that you have to have available to you all the time. And it doesn't really matter if you're talking about paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, the internal assessment, some assessment that your teacher's going to give to you in class. Like, you need to be able to do these things, okay? So what are they? Well, the language. In order to be successful in economics, you must be able to speak the language. Economics is a second, third, fourth, fifth language for you. You can't speak economics without understanding the terms. And what that means is you have to have a very clear, specific, almost surgical understanding the definitions of these words. On paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, you're going to have to provide definitions for all economic terms that you use. You're going to have to provide all definitions on the internal assessment. So anytime in your studies that you use an economic term, you have to provide a definition for it. And I'm talking about like an exacting definition, okay? So that's really, really important. So first, sort of main element of success, knowing the language or the discourse, okay? The second one, of course, is knowing the calculations, right? As you go through your studies, you're going to need to be able to calculate certain mathematical equations in order to be able to perform or show that you understand what it is that you are talking about in economics, right? So the mathematics are not difficult. Division, simple mathematical equations like 8th grade level math, but you need to be able to do them. You need to be able to do them quickly and efficiently, okay? And that would be for especially paper 2 and paper 3, okay? The next element that you must be able to do is diagrams, right? And as you go through your studies, especially if you've been following along in this course, like there are some base diagrams in microeconomics, base diagram in macroeconomics, base diagram in global economy, upon which other diagrams are built, right? So the base diagram is the rule of 11 or the basic demand and supply diagram in microeconomics. In macroeconomics, it is the rule of 10, which is the neoclassical model diagram, or the rule of 9, of course, which is the Keynesian model, or in the global economy, in the international section of global economy, it's the free trade diagram. That's the base diagram for international diagrams. So if you don't know the diagrams, forget it, because it's around the diagrams which you do your analysis and your evaluation. I think of diagrams as cheat sheets for what you need to talk about in your analysis, okay? Diagrams are super important, and I would suggest that it's critical that you understand how the diagrams behave The diagrams are explanations of human behavior. They're not just mathematical calculations that are absent of thought or absence of humanity. No, that's our behavior on a flat graph. So if you learn the base diagrams, then and you understand like what the elements are that are behind them, then you'll understand that there's a base diagram and an event. And there's usually only one event in IB economics. It's an indirect tax. It's a subsidy. It's a shift of aggregate demand, a shift of the long-run aggregate supply curve. It's a change in demand, which changes. It's a protective subsidy diagram, right? Or a protective tariff diagram, a protective quota diagram. Like if you just understand the base diagrams, then you understand what happens based on human behavior, and then you can get really good at the analysis, okay? So you have to be able to explain and analyze these diagrams well in terms of understanding the definitions and also explaining what happened on the diagram. And then the last one is critical, the evaluation. And this evaluation is your ability to take the economic theory that you're learning in class and apply it to real life situations via those 9 elements, right? The 9 themes or core concepts of IB economics that you must look at all real world events through, right? Those lenses. And so evaluation is really hard. And like what I like to say is evaluation is you showing that you can take your theory and apply it to the real world. Or you can take what's in the book, synthesize it in your mind, and then spit it out as some sort of policy paper maybe on paper 3, or some sort of analysis that expresses how this theory applies to the the real world situation that you're looking at, okay? So those are the 5 main elements of success: language, calculations, diagrams, analysis, and evaluations. Super important that you understand that for your studies, okay? And your teacher should always be working on those particular skills, either the language, which is the vocabulary, the calculations, the diagrams, analysis, and evaluation, okay? So let's take a look at how it is that your composite IB score is calculated. All right, if you are a high-level student, paper 1 is going to be worth 20%. So this is the weighting of these papers versus in relation to your overall IB score, right? So in the past, if you've seen like IB students get a 7, like how is that calculated? This is how, okay? So paper 1 is worth 20%. Paper 2 is worth 30%. Paper 3 is worth 30% as well. And the internal assessment is worth 20%, okay? If you are a standard level student, paper 1 is worth 30%, paper 2 is worth 40%, and your internal assessment is worth 30%, okay? So if you add those all up, of course, it comes out to 100%, okay? So those are the weightings of your performance on paper 1, paper 2, if you're high level, paper 3, if you're, for your internal assessment, that's the weighting differences if you're a high level or standard level student. So, all right, so there you have it, the main elements, the language, the calculations, the diagrams, the analysis, the evaluations. These are the papers or the assessment pieces that you'll have to face. Paper 1, 2, 3 in the internal assessment if you're high level. Paper 1, paper 2 in internal assessment if you're standard level. And now you should have a good idea of how this whole thing comes together. And now in the successive videos, we're going to take a look at paper 1 or take a look at the videos of paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, so you understand how it is that they are constructed so you know how to be sure that you are ready for this exam. All right, my friends, excellent. We'll see you in the next video.